Jesus was speaking to a group of people, and I want you to think about this. The people that Jesus was speaking to were living in an occupied land. They were having duress with their wages. They were paying too many taxes, and it was a hopeless condition. There was no way out of it that they could ever see. Basically, the people that heard Jesus give the Lord's Prayer had the recipe for what we would call despair and depression. Do you know what despair and depression are based on? Usually when you're in a hole you can't get out of. Whether it's an emotional one or a financial one or a relational one or health-wise or whatever. And despair sets in, and depression. The people that heard Jesus speak lived every day in an occupied occupied country where they were under severe taxation and oppression. And they just were living out the recipe for despair and for depression. And that's the audience. See, the context was spiritual warfare. The target is God. The content is this prayer. But the audience that heard it were basically living a very troubled life. It's almost like they wanted political deliverance, not another spiritual message. Well, I was thinking about that this week because I was sitting some waiting room somewhere, and I was reading that beacon of what lost people think, the New York Times. I always want to know what pagans think about stuff, so I read the New York Times to kind of keep abreast with paganism. And the New York Times had this article. It was neat. Here's the title. I took a picture for you. Stressed, Tired, Rushed. A portrait of the modern family. That caught my eye. Here's what it says. Children are much more likely than not to grow up in a household in which their parents work. And in nearly half of all two-parent families today, both parents work full-time, which is a sharp increase from previous decades. What hasn't changed is the difficulty of balancing it all. Working parents say they feel stressed, tired, rushed, and short on quality time with their children, their friends, their partners, or hobbies. And it goes on to say, by the way, it said you need to go to the Park Hyatt, actually. That's what was over on the side there. I left it there. I thought that's their solution. Did you know that these people were stressed, tired, rushed, and nothing has changed? Life is hard. Did you know the oldest book of the Bible, the book of Job, do you know what it says in Job 5:7? We were born for trouble like the sparks fly upward. In the laws of physics, heat rises, and so a campfire in Job's time would always have the heat raising the little sparks. And just like always sparks will rise in the heat of the smoke of the fire, so everyone will have troubles in life. So Jesus was talking to a group of people that knew that life wasn't easy. And life is not easy, and it never was and never will be, and God has said that we're going to have trouble. So what's the message? And that's what, before we go, what is the message that God wants us to get as we study the Lord's Prayer? Well, let's go through each of the petitions. Our Father in heaven means I need God to focus me. Why do I need him? Because we're so weak. We're so fearful. We focus on our problems. In fact, I used to have a secretary. I always knew when she was having a hard day, she would park her car under the porch of the church, under the overhang. No one was supposed to park there. I say, why are you parked there? She said, I have the weather bug. She said, and they say there might be a storm today, and I'm so nervous my car will get dented. And I thought, she was always meditating on potential. 9 out of 10 times she parked up there. It was a blue sky, but she thought there might be a storm. We are so weak and fearful. We meditate on our problems. She was a worrier. I remember once in staff meeting, she brought up some concern I have. I said, boy, you are really gifted. She looked at me and said, gifted? I said, yeah, you're a gifted meditator. She said, I didn't know that. She said, I'm just kind of scared all the time and fearful. I said, yeah, you're very good at meditating on your problems and your fears. And she said, I do. I said, you have misdirected meditation. You should focus on the promises and power of God instead of on your fears and all your anxieties. Did you know, because we're so weak and fearful and distracted, we need to pause every day and reorient my life to who God really is. He's up there, sitting on the throne, ruling the universe, orchestrating every detail. His providence means that every single detail in life, both of our unchangeable features and everything that happens in our lives, he is weaving into a tapestry that when we get to heaven and see that tapestry, it's going to be marvelously, everything was for his good. But we can't see. We're too close to the situation. And we see pain and hurt and discord and stress and struggle and agony. And so what we're supposed to do is back up and say, God, I need you to focus me. You're all powerful, so that couldn't happen if you didn't let it. You're so loving, you're so wise, you're right here with me. I need you to focus and reorient my life. So that's the first petition. The second petition is, your kingdom come means I need God to control me, because we're so easily wanting our own way. We are so easily bent, kind of like that car that I had when I was young that my parents would buy that had been in an accident. All their old friends would sell them to us for us kids to drive. And I had a car in high school that was actually facing this way, but it drove that way. The frame had, and the tie rods, I don't even know the mechanical, but the whole time I drove it, I had to actually be pressure turning the wheel this way to go straight, because the car was going this way the whole time. And so the tires went like this. You know, it wore one side, the facing outside of the tires. And when I used to drive that car, I would let go of the wheel sometimes, and it would immediately jerk to the left, and I would pull it back. Of course, it wore out after a while, but it was fun. It was a great illustration for me, because I thought about, we were bent away from God from birth. And we get saved, and our spirit is, and we have a new heart, but our flesh is still facing. You ever heard the boy that says, you know, I might be standing in the corner or whatever, you know, the one, but I'm sitting down in my heart, you know, that illustration that no matter what you do to me, I'm going to have it my own way. That's how all of us are. And so I have to, after I focus out of my weakness and fears and everything else on who God is, then I have to invite his control and say, Lord, my life wants to go that way. So I'm asking you to hold on to this body you bought at a price, and I want to go your way. I don't want my own way. I want you to control me.